Hello, my name is Russell Myers, independent for U.S. President for 2024. This video may get a little long and slightly complex, but unlike other presidential candidates, I give a lot of credit to the intelligence of the listener. Uh, Many presidential candidates, the majority of them, have the tendency to talk down to the audience. They will break up subjects. Now, I will do that to piece by piece, just to be able to do a video like this. So you may look back on some of my other videos, my policies, where I explain a lot of things which build up to something like this. But I'm making this a standalone so that you can understand it. You know, I tend to look at things as a collective. I don't look at this is happening over here and then this is happening over here and they're not connected. They are connected. Let me start off with strikes. We have seen many strikes or attempted strikes, if they were allowed, like the railroad workers were congressionally banned from striking, which would not happen under my administration. I am very much in favor of workers' rights and citizens' rights. I'm in favor of consumer strikes. So, right now, FedEx pilots are on strike. They rejected a settlement which impacts a lot of large and small businesses and individuals in many ways. My own company, I'm a nurse. Our company, our pharmacy, has a contract with FedEx. This is who delivers our medications. So we're having to hold on to old medications right now because we don't know when we're going to get our next shipment in. Shipments that have already been picked up are probably sitting in warehouses and going nowhere. If the pilots are on strike, that affects the warehouse workers, the ground crews, the drivers, etc., etc. It slows things down. It can have a major impact on small businesses who may have already paid for shipments and may have to pay for new shipments to be sent by another means. USPS, UPS, Amazon, ground, what have you. So it's going to cost them more money because the suppliers are not going to send a replacement without getting paid for both shipments. So this is a problem for small businesses that have invested a considerable sum in the supplies that they ordered, and they expected to have within a day or two. Not having the supplies is another problem, and that affects their ability to keep their workers productive and may wind up having to cut hours or lay off workers temporarily. Yeah. So, in addition, UPS workers are in negotiations and talking about going on strike on August 1st. What's that? 6 days away. So get ready for that. If FedEx pilots are still on strike and UPS workers go on strike, that could be big. The UPS strike is projected, if it goes forward, to be the largest strike in this country in roughly 100 years. This will impact the economy in major, major ways. So it stands to reason after the railroad workers to see if Congress is going to try and step in and stop the UPS strike, but Congress doesn't have the same agreement, the same legislation to hold power over the UPS workers as they did with the railroad workers. Let's wait and see. All right, bankruptcies. Today, right now, the United States is seeing the greatest number of bankruptcies, both not just personal bankruptcies, but corporate bankruptcies. The greatest number of corporate bankruptcies that we have seen since 2010, which was when, quantitative easing began, when we were recovering from the 2008-2009 crash. But most of us know we never actually recovered from that crash. So again, these things are tied together, especially personal bankruptcies, layoffs. These are tied. As of right now, the tech sector has laid off over 250,000 workers since the beginning of this year. Roughly 250,000, and maybe slightly less, but this continues. The more that you see corporate bankruptcies, the more layoffs you see. What is driving all the bankruptcies? Inflation. Right now, you get these quotes of the inflation rate being around 3%. First of all, that inflation rate does not include housing, electricity, or energy. So your food is not included, your transportation is not included, your electrical bill is not included. And these are the main drivers of what you generally pay for your cost of living. They don't include that in the inflation rate. Number two, when you hear this inflation rate, this is talking about, you hear the quotes year over year or month over month, but they're not comparing the inflation rate today, what you are paying today, to 2019. Prices started rising in 2020. Actually, it started before that, and inflation never stops. Prices go up, they never come down. So right now, you are paying 25, 30% more, in some cases more than that, depending on what you're buying, than you were in 2019. A lot of meat products have increased by more than 50% since 2019, and they have not come down. The inflation rate never comes down. So this drives bankruptcies. Inflation and bankruptcies and layoffs lead to strikes. And it all runs in a cycle. What's being done about it? Nothing really. We keep on hearing about the unemployment rate being so low. But, I encourage people to watch my other channel. If you're not watching it, it's called Issues Unite. I go into a lot of subjects. I've had that channel since 2017. So please, I go into a lot of detail on those on different subjects there. So when they talk about job creation, what jobs? If the tech sector, which is one of the highest paying, is laying off 250,000 workers, more jobs are being automated. You've got AI that is replacing many jobs. Manufacturing has been offshored to other countries over years. Where are these jobs? And I do explain on my other channel. Okay, yeah, some of these jobs are minimum, most of these jobs are low wage, minimum wage, commission, contract. I can take a full-time job and break it into 2 part-time jobs. I can do this with 1,000 jobs. Oh, you know what I did? I just created 2,000 jobs. I'm a job creator now. So you can have a job at minimum wage and only work 1 or 2 hours a week. Guess what? You're considered employed. You can work for Uber and pay more money on your expenses than you gain in income, but you're considered employed. When they talk about the unemployment rate, they talk about the U3 unemployment rate. They never talk about the U6 unemployment rate, which is marginally employed people working part-time and so forth that want to be working full-time. They also don't talk about the labor participation rate, which is less than 63%. So that means that over 30% of the labor force is not attached to the labor market. That means that they're not working for whatever reason. Maybe they just gave up. Sometimes those people are looking for work. They're not eligible for benefits, but the labor department does not count them in the unemployment rate. This happens very frequently. If you've been looking for a job for more than 6 months, you drop off the unemployment rate, but they don't yet count you in the labor participation rate for several more months. So it's only what gets reported that you see. These things are all tied together. De-dollarization. Let's start with something. The Federal Reserve and foreign investment in U.S. Treasuries. Foreign investors in U.S. Treasuries have declined by 33% since 2014. Yes, this is a big thing. Yeah, the largest holder, that means that other countries are showing lack of confidence in the U.S. dollar, in the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, to even be able to pay this back, or they object to the controls that are put on them. Meanwhile, you see the BRICS alliance that is rising, and that meeting is also coming up in August. So, I'll get around to that in a moment. The largest singular holder of U.S. Treasuries is the Federal Reserve. They create money out of thin air to buy up U.S. debt. Now, a lot of people say, well, but they have to pay their profits to the Treasury Department. Well, that's true. But I'm going to do a whole different video on this one. The Federal Reserve has a select number of member banks that can hold stock in the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a corporation. The structure is different from most corporations, but they still are mandated to pay 6% of their profits to the member banks. It can only be nationally chartered banks that can hold stock and be a member of the Federal Reserve. That means J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the largest too big to fail banks. Now, those banks are mandated to hold a certain number of U.S. Treasuries also. The interest on the federal debt right now is approaching $700 billion a year. This is part of the budget. Every year, right now, we're paying $700 billion just on interest to the debt. Out of that $700 billion, every U.S. Treasury has to go through the Federal Reserve. So 6% of that goes to the member banks. All right, so it's bigger than that. But I'll cover that separately. Many countries have been dumping U.S. Treasuries. China, in 1 month, dropped $100 billion in U.S. Treasuries. The members of BRICS and other countries are creating systems like digital currencies for the purpose of trade outside of the SWIFT system. SWIFT system is what enables the United States and the West to impose economic sanctions on other countries. They don't want to enable the United States and West to place economic sanctions on them, so they are creating different systems whereby they can bypass the SWIFT system. The BRICS alliance is a part of that. So right now, central bank digital currencies. The Federal Reserve is looking at creating a digital currency, but they're looking at making it mandatory, which would give them complete control over every transaction that you make. Let's compare. Russia is looking at a digital currency, but they are going, well, let me go further. China is developing a digital currency. These are in development. These are all in development. Who else? The Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. They are developing. It is in development right this minute. A central bank digital currency. I believe Brazil is working on a digital currency. This way they can trade with each other in their native currencies. But every one of these countries is also going to keep in place touchless payment systems. In other words, your debit card, your credit card. So you'll still have that. It's not, every transaction will not be controlled by the central bank. They are still going to keep cash as a valid payment system, which you cannot, the central bank is not going to be able to control your transactions that you conduct in cash. So, de-dollarization, this is a growing trend. At least 40 countries, there are already 5 countries in the BRICS alliance. Brazil, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This accounts for over half of the global population. India and China are 2 of the largest consumer economies and 2 of the largest economies in general. China is expected to be the largest economy, global economy, by 2028. It may come sooner than that. By 2030, India is expected to be the 3rd largest economy globally. It may come sooner than that. Who knows? So you're talking about 2 of the largest economies on the planet. So they are moving away from the dollar. More than half of the global population are taking steps to move away from the dollar. I will point out that the BRICS alliance does not mandate, like the Swiss system. This is all going to come from the West. This is all going to come from the West. The BRICS alliance does not mandate that you cannot trade in the Swiss system and the BRICS system at the same time. But the Swiss system may well impose such a limitation because the Swiss system is about control. That means that the Swiss system will cut off those economies. And this will lead to further rise of the global East and South. What does all of this mean for you? If all of this moves forward, and all of these economies are they keep on breaking apart. That means that imports will decrease. That will increase prices. Exports will decrease. That will increase layoffs. If you're not selling to other countries, right now Europe is in recession. Inflation is just crushing people over there. So we have fewer exports. Other than energy, we have fewer exports going to Europe. Over years, we have sanctioned Iran, Venezuela, Russia. We've imposed sanctions and tariffs on China. Just all of these things happening, which keep on driving up your cost of living. This has happened rather gradually, so you pay less attention to it. If it happened all at once, you would definitely be out in the streets. But this is reducing manufacturing, production jobs, even tech jobs, service jobs, and driving down wages. This is what is happening to you. So this is about to accelerate tremendously. We could resolve things diplomatically. We could create more living wage jobs in the United States, doing things that help our communities, infrastructure, healthcare, education, and more. But we're not going to do that. Oh, that would be socialism. Tell me, if you don't have a job or your job barely puts food on your table, and you're at risk of becoming homeless, and the government came to you and offered you a job, this is one of part of these are all covered in my policies. If the government came to you and said, "Let me give you a living wage job and benefits," wouldn't you take it? Would you be so against socialism and government jobs? No, you wouldn't. And that spending that you got, the income that you got, would support your local economy. You would pay taxes on it, which would help. If you're making minimum wage and you're below the poverty line, you're not paying any taxes. But if you've got a living wage, you're going to pay taxes. Guess what? You start bringing down the national debt. You bring down the national debt. You bring down the interest rate. You keep on increasing production. You bring down inflation. This is all tied together. But name another candidate that is going to explain all of this and how it all ties together. You won't find one. They will not tell you this. Then they're going to keep on focusing on things that, they're talking points. They're limited in scope. I have a much more comprehensive view and a much more comprehensive approach than any of them do. All right, so I hope this raises some awareness on how all of this is tied together. If we don't engage in diplomacy, we're cutting ourselves off from the rest of the world. And some people, nationalists, think that this is a good thing, but trust me, it is not. The United States has engaged in trade with other countries since before the American Revolution, and that has never stopped. No, we cannot produce everything that we need. And if we're producing things to sell to other countries, but then we cut off the ability to sell to other countries, well, guess what? Guess who got shot in the foot? It's not them, because they're trading with each other. All right. Share this video. Talk about these subjects. Think about these subjects. If you can afford it. Please donate whatever you can to help expand my campaign. Be sure and subscribe to my other channel, Issues Unite, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day.